Picture this. You are sitting on your couch, watching a screen, waiting for the microwave to ping. Or maybe you are at a drive-thru, ready to inhale a hot, perfectly cooked burger. You take a bite. It is soft. It is warm. It is the most normal thing in the world today. But 2 million years ago, if you demanded your food hot, tender, and easy to swallow, you wouldn't just be a diva. You would be a dead, starving freak. Let me guess. When you picture early humans before the invention of fire, what do you see? You picture these ripped, badass apex predators, right? Cavemen taking down mammoths with wooden spears, beating their chests, and ripping into fresh, bloody steaks like absolute legends. Wrong. Completely, embarrassingly wrong. We were not the kings of the jungle. We were the cleanup crew. So, if we weren't grilling mammoth steaks, what exactly were we shoving into our mouths to survive? Why was the act of eating back then so completely alien to how we eat now? Here are 5 bizarre, brutal truths about the raw reality of the early human diet. Reason 1. We were glorified bottom feeders. You think you have the instincts of an apex predator? Meet your ancestor, Homo habilis. We didn't hunt the big game. We hid from it. We waited in the tall grass for the real killers, the lions, the saber-toothed cats, the giant hyenas, to finish their meal and wander off. What was left for us? Scraps. Mostly just dry, sun-baked bones. But how do you survive on bones? You don't eat the bone, you eat the vault inside. In 2013, Smithsonian paleoanthropologist Briana Pobiner proved exactly how we survived. We used rocks to smash open those abandoned bones. We were after the bone marrow. Before fire, bone marrow was the ultimate primal superfood. It was a massive shot of pure fat and calories. It was soft enough to eat raw, easy to digest, and packed the energy we desperately needed. We weren't noble hunters. We were scavengers, armed with rocks, sucking grease out of leftovers. Reason 2. Eating was a full-time job. How long did your lunch break take today? 15 minutes? Half an hour? If you lived before the control of fire, eating wasn't a break from your day. Eating was your day. Why? Because early humans didn't just survive on scavenged marrow. We ate plants. But not the soft, genetically modified supermarket fruit you know today. Prehistoric plants were biological fortresses. We are talking about tough roots, fibrous tubers, wild seeds, and bitter vegetation. How do you get nutrients out of a biological fortress when you don't have fire to break it down? You chew, and chew, and chew. Harvard primatologist Richard Wrangham laid this out brilliantly in his 2009 book, Catching Fire. Without heat to soften cell walls, early humans had to spend 6 to 8 hours every single day just chewing. Imagine waking up, putting a raw, woody yam in your mouth, and grinding your teeth together until sunset. You literally did not have time to invent things, build societies, or ponder the universe. You were too busy chewing. Reason 3. The jaw of a monster. Have you looked at your jawline in the mirror lately? Evolutionarily speaking, your jaw is pathetic. It is weak. It is small. Why? Because you eat mush. Before fire, having a cute little chin was a death sentence. To grind through raw animal tissue and endless fibrous roots, early humans possessed massive, bulging jaw muscles. These muscles were so huge they anchored high up onto thick, reinforced skulls. We were walking, breathing nutcrackers. Our heads were literally built to withstand the extreme mechanical force of crunching through raw nature all day long. Reason 4. The giant gut. If you put a pre-fire human in a modern swimsuit, they wouldn't have a shredded six-pack. They would have a massive, protruding, bloated belly. Why did they look like that? Because breaking down raw, fibrous food takes an industrial-sized digestive tract. Your stomach and intestines act like a biological fermentation tank. Before fire pre-digested our food, our bodies had to do all the heavy lifting. We needed a gigantic colon just to physically rot the raw vegetation inside us long enough to extract a few measly calories. Reason 5. The brain starvation diet. Here is the ultimate evolutionary catch-22. You want to be smart? You need energy. The brain is an energy hog, but your massive gut is stealing all the available energy just to digest your raw, terrible diet. How do you escape this trap? You don't. Not on a raw diet. Before fire, we were biologically locked out of becoming geniuses. Our bodies simply could not afford to power a large brain and a massive digestive system at the same time. We were stuck. Which brings us to the climax of human history. You have a creature spending half its waking life grinding tough roots. It sports a gorilla jaw. It drags around a massive, bloated digestive system. It lives off the scraps of actual predators. Evolutionarily speaking, we were at a dead end. We were destined to be just another slightly clever ape wandering the savannah until the end of time. But then, the plot twists. How did we go from smashing bones in the dirt to splitting atoms and flying helicopters on Mars? What was the exact moment we broke the rules of nature? We captured fire. We didn't just use it to get warm or scare away the wolves. We used it to outsource our digestion. What actually happens to a species when it drops a piece of raw meat or a tough root into the roaring flames? Magic. Biological magic. Heat breaks down the complex proteins. It shatters the rigid plant cell walls. It kills the parasites. Cooking is literally pre-digestion happening outside of your body. And science absolutely backs this up. In 1995, anthropologists Leslie Aiello and Peter Wheeler dropped a bombshell on the scientific community. They called it the expensive tissue hypothesis. They proved mathematically that the human brain and the human gut were locked in a zero-sum war for calories. You cannot have both. When we started cooking our food, it became soft, safe, and packed with easily absorbed calories. Suddenly, we didn't need a massive fermentation tank in our bellies anymore. Over generations, our giant guts shrank. And all that leftover energy, it flooded straight upward. It fueled the growth of a massive, superpowered brain. We cooked ourselves into humanity. But what about those monster jaws? In 2016, Harvard professor Daniel Lieberman published a groundbreaking biomechanics study in the journal Nature. He looked at exactly what happened when we switched to soft, cooked food. The results were staggering. We stopped needing to chew for 8 hours a day. We only needed a fraction of the bite force. Because we weren't working out our faces all day, those massive jaw muscles shrank. And here is the beautiful part. When those thick, heavy muscles stopped tightly binding our skulls, the bone was finally free to expand. Our faces flattened out. Our craniums ballooned. The shrinking of our bite literally created the physical space for our modern brains to grow. Our hunter-gatherer ancestors stumbled upon the ultimate biological hack. Cooking didn't just change our dinner, it redesigned our DNA. Our modern instincts, craving hot, energy-dense, melt-in-your-mouth food, are ancient survival mechanisms echoing from the first campfires. Look down at your plate tonight. That hot meal is the only reason you have the brain power to understand the words I am saying right now. The way we live today, popping soft, cooked, ultra-processed food into our tiny mouths, walking around with our shrunken guts and our massive, overthinking brains? It is a weird evolutionary experiment. We are an absolute anomaly of nature. We solved the energy crisis of the wild. We won the game. But here is the catch. Cooking food solved one massive problem 2 million years ago, but it secretly set the stage for another. A problem that is quietly destroying our modern bodies right now. And it has everything to do with what happened when we finally stopped chasing our food and started trapping it in cages of our own making. But that is a story for another time.